Hey YouTube, what's going on? Cheeseboy628 here, today giving you the replay of the divisional round of NPL Season 8 with me, Cheeseboy628, coach of the Phoenix Sunkern, versus Rob, coach of the Gotham City Golurks. So, I actually did record this. It's an hour and 8 minutes. I've tried about 5 times to try rendering the video through, and it just wasn't happening with my computer. I definitely need to get my computer checked out at this point. I've definitely uploaded hour plus uploads before, but it's been overheating, so I think I need to get it checked just to see if it's just like something's wearing down internally or if it like just needs to be dusted off. I'm not really sure, but that's besides the point. Let's talk about what's going on between me and Rob. So his team is Excadrill, Weavile, Gyarados, Tangrowth, Slowbro, Mega Altaria, Lycanroc, Dusk, Golurk, Alakazam, Garbodor, Hippopotas, and Articuno. So a couple things to note from what I recall last time, because also studying my replay where I lost 4-0 I think against him last time. And he had Mienshao and Skuntank. Now he doesn't have either of these, which is why I note that. And Skuntank was a reliable hazard removal for him. He also has Excadrill now still, but also he doesn't have Mienshao. And honestly, I'm just really grateful he doesn't have Mienshao, because that thing just had so much presence against my team. It was very threatening, and I just wasn't sure how to deal with it at the time. But I am definitely glad that it's not here anymore. So that was definitely a saving grace in that sense. Obviously, it's still going to be quite the battle, and you know my team at this point. But I'm going to go over the team, what I ended up choosing, and you can ridicule me from there. But I started with Tapu and Volcanion. I knew I wanted these two together because I wanted to have that resist of ground. Excadrill is the biggest presence of that, but also Gyarados and Tangrowth would be able to take advantage of with Earthquake as well as Golurk. And not technically a Hippopotas. I don't think he used it once. But yeah, I brought Scarf with just enough EVs to outspeed Jolly Weavile. Yeah, the point of it really was, I mean, it can handle basically everything on his team except Tangrowth. So I just need to watch out for that if need be. But otherwise, I mean, it has such a presence. I have Hornleech for recovery, Wood Hammer for power, Rock Slide because Gyarados mostly. I mean, Wood Hammer also does pretty well, but I needed some kind of coverage, especially since Mega Altaria is a thing. And also it helps with Articuno especially. But I also have Smart Strike. That is the hardest hitting move that Tapu has that can hit Altaria. So just wanted to put that out there. It's unfortunately just base 70. It does a fair bit of damage. You'll see later how much it has the potential of doing. But yeah, that's essentially that really. Volcanion. So last time I had Dual Stab, Toxic, and Roar. And not having Sludge Bomb last time really sucked. So I'm definitely having it this time. And Toxic is for being able to handle Slowbro, so I can stall that out. Granted, I do need to be wary of Altaria anyway, but Volcanion's presence in general to handle Mega Altaria is going to be huge. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Mega Altaria can get EQ, and that would be with the grassy terrain. That would be also good support for Volcanion. Now we have Stoutland. This has enough speed to outspeed Scarf Drill. Yeah, that's essentially that. I put Wild Charge because of Gyarados. Return because that's the biggest hard-hitting stab I have. I don't have Facade because I just didn't have enough room on it, really. I put Superpower because of Excadrill, and then Pursuit just to trap potentially like an Alakazam or a Golurk. Then I have Gigalith. I do not have Stone Edge on this. I didn't find Stone Edge to be super helpful. I have Throat Chop for Golurk because, I mean, having Earthquake on things for like Excadrill wasn't going to be helpful, so that's why Superpower and Throat Chop were my choices here. Toxic is just to stall out those bulky walls that he does have, such as Mega Altaria, Tangrowth, and Slowbro, amongst a couple of others. And then I have Rocks, of course. Now this Halucha, you know I like to run defensive Halucha, and this is no different here. He has Slowbro, and if it has a Psychic Stab move, Halucha can't really handle it, and so, especially if he's Fizz Def, so I just thought, this is probably the best route to go, because this is my main check to Excadrill, really. There's nothing else that really likes taking hits against it. Next here we got Jirachi. Yeah, so I had a Scarf Jirachi last time. The only difference is I have Healing Wish instead of Fire Punch, because Fire Punch was for Excadrill. Thunder Punch is for Gyarados. Iron Head, Classic Stab and Flinch, and then U-Turn for Momentum. With that said, let's go to the replay and see what he ended up bringing. So he actually brought, basically his team is half offensive, half bulky. So he has the Regen Core of Tangrowth and Slowbro, and then he also has Mega Altaria. And last time he made Mega Altaria pretty bulky, and yeah, we'll see how bulky it really is after a couple of damage checks and that kind of thing. From there we can kind of gauge speed and offensive capabilities. But last time his Excadrill was Scarf, and I do anticipate this Excadrill to also be Scarf. I don't think he brought Weavile or Gyarados last time. But Gyarados can be a threat with DD. You'll see later I get quite fearful of Gyarados. After enough Mons removed from my team, one DD can sweep, but I do have a couple Scarfers. But Jirachi's has enough speed to outspeed +1 Jolly Gyarados, and that was kind of the goal there. But yeah, then Weavile can hit really hard as well, but I have a couple of checks for that in terms of Volcanion, but that's more of a specially bulky. As you may have seen, I put 100 Spidef. But Gigalith is probably one of the bigger checks to that. But that's basically it from what I'm going into here. I thought of a lot of different things I wanted to start with. I thought about Tapu, so I could get Grassy Terrain up from the beginning. I thought about Gigalith, so I could get Rocks and Sand up. I thought about Jirachi, so I could just get Momentum. And ultimately, I believe I did start with Gigalith, as he starts with Slowbro. So of course, this isn't a great matchup for me turn 1, but with the Spidef boost, with a lot of bulk, granted not Spidef bulk, but still, I was like, okay, well, we may as well get up Rocks. His Hazard Control / Hazard Setter is going to be Excadrill most likely, but he also technically has the defog capabilities of Altaria and Gyarados. But Excadrill is the most likely. And yeah, that's essentially that going in. And I just thought, you know what, let's get the Rocks up. We'll take a hit, but I just pray we don't get burned. I do have a decent amount of attack investment, plus Gigalith is just strong inherently. But he does outspeed, of course, because he's base 30, I'm base 25. And I do get Rocks up and I don't get burned. Also should note that I do have leftovers on this thing. I thought about the Sand Rock, whatever you call it. Smooth Rock, I think. That, to give Stoutland a little more presence. But ultimately, I think leftovers did come in clutch, and you'll see that. But yeah, I was a little bit worried because my sets weren't particularly innovative, but, nonetheless. So I'm going to switch out here. I'm going into Tapu because I feel... what was I feeling here, TBH? I think he thought that Volcanion was going to be an easy switch for me, which is why I went into Tapu, 100%. And, yeah, because I basically was anticipating the Toxic. And so taking the Toxic now is nice because, or at least with Tapu, is better than Volcanion because Volcanion has such a presence against his team. Granted, Slowbro does decently well. Once Volcanion's inside, though, and Slowbro's a little bit withered, we should be in a decent position. But yeah, so obviously Tapu is a really good matchup against Slowbro. So, Tangrowth is a pretty obvious switch for him, which is why I bring in Volcanion. And so here, I do have Sludge Bomb, and but I also have Toxic, and so I was debating about what I was necessarily going to go for here. And indeed, I do go for the Toxic, and this also reveals that I have Toxic. But yeah, it's important that my Volcanion doesn't get Toxic, because again, I need to kind of preserve it as much as possible. So I'm going to go into Jirachi to take anything, even if he decides to be edgy and go for a Scald or something. I just want to bring in Jirachi. And conveniently for me, he does bring in Mega Altaria, and if he stays in, he's going to have to Mega Evolve, and he obviously doesn't want to take an Iron Head, so I'm going to U-turn. I do end up getting a crit here, which does about 21% with the crit. I mean, obviously he's going to be offensive, but so what's interesting here is Grassy Terrain does run out. We both get some nice recovery here. with my investment, there is zero chance even an adamant earthquake is going to be able to kill Gigalith, and I do have my superpower to retaliate. So he can try to get off a ton of damage on me. He could try to spin, or he apparently has rocks, and I'm pretty sure he has Scarf. He's Scarf, so that was just an interesting play on his part to not worry about hazards instead. Granted, you know, being Gigalith, like, I could have just got rocks up right away afterwards anyway. But he brings in Altaria, and so this is interesting because I have the defense drop now, I have the attack drop. I'm not in a great position to stay in, but especially if he has Earthquake, because again, grassy terrain is off right now. But I am going to go for the Toxic because I do have it, and this will put some pressure on his Altaria for what he wants to do, aka probably press Heal Bell, because that'll heal both his Altaria and his Slowbro. And so I'm going to switch out because I want to take advantage of this situation with Stoutland. Because at this point, I don't really know what his Tangrowth is going to do. I'm hoping I can 2 KO something here, but you know, we're not sure yet. So we will see here as he does switch out to Tangrowth. And so unfortunately for me, he is fully Fizz Def, or at least pretty darn close, as you can tell by his Rocky Helmet as well. This play was kind of interesting. I debated, I knew he was probably going to press Sleep Powder here, so I thought, well, if I want something to go to sleep, what would it be? And again, Jirachi does have Healing Wish, so the idea that it could have the capacity of fully healing something and removing their status would be better than it being asleep and, like, you know, basically fully at full health. So that's what I thought there, which is why I decided let's get a little more damage on it, and ultimately it can be asleep, and then later I can try to you know, use Healing Wish if need be, or maybe even try to burn sleep turns. But I'm going to go Hawlucha here. I was debating going to Jirachi immediately for some momentum, but I thought there's a really good chance he's going to press Knockoff here. Like a really good chance. And so I thought, well, I'll preserve the band here, but also Hawlucha doesn't do too much except go for Defog. And the reason I think about that is because Excadrill's gone, so his hazards are gone, and Gigalith is still in really good health. So the chance of me getting rid of hazards for my sake, especially for Volcanions, plus being able to get rocks at myself, is going to be pretty likely. So I'm going to press Defog here. As he knocks off my leftovers, really not a big deal whatsoever. And I just get to press Defog. So this is really nice. And I'm not really sure what he's going to go for here with the Slowbro. I don't know if he has Psychic Stab yet, but I am going to go for the Toxic. Oh, come on. Why did I do this? I am going to go for the Toxic. Because that's going to be able to wither him a little bit, especially if he's not expecting me to stay in, because why would he? And so, you know, I also got the evasion boost, so that way he can't, I can't miss Toxic. But yeah, so he, if you noticed, I have Roost, Defog, U-Turn, and Toxic, and so not really that much offensive capabilities here. But yeah, I debated about this turn a little bit. I don't know if he has Psychic yet, but at full, I should be able to live one. Nonetheless, though, I do go for U-Turn because I wasn't sure what he's going to do himself, but thankfully works out for me. It does about half, which is really nice, and I'm able to go into Gigalith, and there's nothing Weavile can do here that can kill my Gigalith. So I thought, okay, I'm in a really good position, especially to press rocks right now, and this is really nice to cinch that up. But what does kind of suck is he has Low Kick, and Gigalith is a heavy mod. Like real heavy, and after doing the calc, he is adamant choice banded. Like, that is a ridiculous amount of damage, and so I am able to get rocks up. I'm able to barely survive, but you know, I'm at such low health now, it kind of sucks. So I'm probably able to get sand up one more time after this, you know, as like a sack, but basically that's about it right now. So here I am going to switch out to Jirachi. I was debating between Hawlucha and Jirachi. Turns out Jirachi like takes like nothing from a banded low kick. Like, I'm talking 10 to 14%. And so that was a better switch as opposed to Hawlucha. And so that's really nice because then I can kind of freely either press Iron Head or U-Turn here. And I do press Iron Head. And so this is a 2 KO right now. And this is actually something, this is like the turning point of the game. I'm telling you right now, we're about halfway through the game. But this was huge. Okay, I need to talk about my rationale here. So Tangrowth after Sand is going to be at 8%. His Slowbro, I'm not sure if it's toxic at this point. I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, after Rocks, he'll be down a little bit, but Sand will be gone soon. And basically, I was expecting Rob to think, okay, I have a regen core, and Tangrowth has Rocky Helmet. Ironhead doesn't even 2-hit KO. Like, we're talking about 18... The more I think about it, the more I kind of see where he's coming from. But I think... Is regenerated 30% or 1/3? I'm not sure, but it really could be all the difference. But I thought, okay, he's going to keep trying to stall me out here. And since Sand is gone, he could continually switch out, get that 30%, and then get 18. So he would take damage from rocks, 12%. Then he would take damage from my Ironhead, 18%. And I'm actually looking up regenerator ability right now because I'm not sure if it's 30% or it's 1/3. Okay, so it really does make all the difference. Because then he would have that extra 3% and keep recovering that because Sandstorm wouldn't be able to wither him. And so he could go in a Slowbro, waste my Ironheads. He could go back to Tangrowth, wither me, and waste Ironheads. 16 to 17% by 16 to 17%. And so I thought that's what he's going to do, which is why I end up switching actually and go into Volcanion to get some momentum. Turns out he Sludge Bombs and he gets the poison. I just, what? I mean, there's just a lot about that play that I was so confused by. Either he just made like the ultimate Hail Mary or he was just planning on sacking it and pressed whatever, just in case. So I'm not really sure. I mean, that was just really, really confusing to me. And ultimately it does suck because that poison is going to wither me, 12% each time. So that really does suck. And the thing is, now his Tangrowth's alive. And he can press regen and things are going to go better for him. So yeah, I'm going to press Sludge Bomb here. Does a fair bit to the Slowbro, but after leftovers and things, it's not the biggest thing. I'm not sure if I realized... let's see here. I think it's... I'm not sure if it's regular toxic or not right now. We're going to see after this turn. But basically, in the live comm too, you could tell that I was not feeling it. So yeah, he does have the residual slowly killing toxic. After 3 turns of this, I'm down to 26%. And my Volcanion was a pretty valuable asset here. But I'm thinking, okay, well, I withered my Volcanion here. My other play would have been to perhaps go to Tapu and be able to threaten the Slowbro. But, I don't have anything to hit this Tangrowth really hard with it, especially when it's fully Fizz Death. I didn't have Mega Horn to be able to kind of go for that Hail Mary, so it kind of sucked there. Plus he had the option of going to Altaria. Smart Strike isn't the strongest thing in the world, but theoretically could have been a 2-hit KO. But yeah, so these series of plays were just really unfortunate for me. Tangrowth gets to live, Volcanion gets poisoned and withered all the way to this point. So this is where I'm like, oh my god, I'm really losing a sense of it right now. Even though it's 6-5, I'm losing it. So I switch out and I go to Jirachi because I knew he was probably going to slack off here. And the residual toxic is still in his advantage. So here, I am... What did I go for here? Did I go for U-turn? No. So this was interesting. I could have went for U-turn, obviously. But what I thought was, let's see. U-turn does base 140. Ironhead does base 120. So his Tangrowth would have been down to I don't know, around 8%. And then I could have U-turned perhaps with Hawlucha. And then he could have went to Slowbro. And technically we could have had this continual we could have had this continual thing going on. But again, I just didn't really have anything to hit Tangrowth really hard right now, especially since Volcanion is just not in a really good state. So it the thing is that Volcanion was able to be stalled out at this point and it really sucked. You also might be able to see by the chat here, I had around 30 seconds because I was doing all these calcs and I'm like, okay, I need to regroup here. And thankfully Rob did stop the timer for me. Not trying to foreshadow other games or anything, lol. But anyway, so I thought at this point, I have nothing to hit Tangrowth hard enough to kill unless I bring in the dog right now. And that's why I did. And I go for the Healing Wish, and of course I'm going to be faster. And this return is going to kill him, and I'm going to take 17%. Not the biggest deal in the world, but yeah, I'm going to be able to take him out. So he brings in Weavile here. And this is really interesting because unless he has Defog with something else, this is his last chance to use Weavile. So I checked, and a Bandit Adamant Pursuit has 0 chance of killing Stoutland, and he doesn't have hazards. So, and granted, he's not going to have priority outside of Weavile. So therefore, if I switch out right now, Stoutland is going to live. So I am going to switch out, and ultimately I sack Hawlucha. Turns out he goes for Icicle Crash. Not sure why he did, but nonetheless, that's fine by me. And I can easily go into my Tapu here because it is Scarf, and that will be able to cinch that, be able to take out Weavile. I do go for Woodhammer because in the case that he did want to go to his Gyarados afterwards, and that it had Intimidate, I wanted to make sure that it would be able to kill it from -1. Because otherwise, at this point, as I was kind of saying in the beginning of the battle, if he is at +1, I think I lose. I really do think I lose at that point without having Sand. Granted, Stoutland should be able to outspeed. Yeah, it's able to outspeed +1 Gyarados. But, of course, I need to have it alive. So he goes in Altaria here, and this is where some plays that are a little bit questionable happen as well. So I go to Stoutland, and what I'm thinking, this is kind of a regret for me too. I think what I should have done here is sack Gigalith, but I was hoping, considering his Altaria is pretty bulky, and I do have 80 EVs in speed, I thought, okay, I should be able to outspeed this Altaria, and considering it's probably more defensive, I might not even be too KO'd by this Hyper Voice that I am anticipating. But it turns out he does outspeed me. He can definitely 2 KO me, and as much as this return definitely kills him next turn, I just, it's just not a good situation for me, obviously. And he's in a situation where he can be like, oh, well, I can just freely press Roost right now because, I mean, otherwise he'd Hyper Voice and kill me off, and that would suck. But yeah, so I don't have enough health to live a second Hyper Voice, so I'm going to go to Volcanion, actually. So I was thinking between Gigalith and Volcanion, but I thought Volcanion would have been nicer for the pressure of being able to Sludge Bomb. And if he does have Hyper Voice and Fire Blast as his only moves, he has Heal Bell and Roost otherwise, then Volcanion definitely is able to handle Altaria. So that was probably one of my bigger mistakes at the end too, letting Stoutland take the hit. But again, I thought if Altaria was bulky enough, I mean, it has to have significant speed in order to be able to, and Spatak to be able to do what it did to Stoutland. So he is going to be threatened out, as I do go for the Sludge Bomb. I do take a little more damage here, but because of grassy terrain and with that Toxic, I am actually back to 26%, so it's not like a huge deal. But yeah, I am going to go to Stoutland here. Yeah, it just kind of sucks what happened with Stoutland. Granted, you're going to see why it doesn't necessarily matter. But basically here, I thought, you know, Slowbro is my real reliable thing in order to be able to kill off, or Stoutland is my reliable thing to kill off Slowbro. Granted, I could also go to Tapu, but I'm talking about something that can, you know, kill anything on his team, and I don't need to worry about losing momentum in that sense. But so that's why I stay in here. I have Wild Charge in return. Neither is able to OHKO Slowbro from this range, so I go for return. And he goes for the Scald, and he gets the burn. And so, really does suck, for sure. That definitely kind of cinched it for Stoutland. Yeah, because if I was still alive, and you'll see with the Gyarados too in a second, I mean, Stoutland would have been a really good position to kind of like finish things off. Obviously, this was like his 3rd Scald, so it makes sense that he eventually got a burn. Obviously, just sucks for Stoutland. But he does end up sacking Slowbro, probably the best play, even though he could have technically preserved it. But yeah, we're kind of in this 50-50 here, but you see what I ended up picking. So I knew he was going to bring in, I mean, he obviously had Gyarados or Altaria left. And I thought, if he brings in Gyarados, and I don't bring in Tapu, I basically 100% lose. Because he can go for +1, and if he's, you know, faster than the EVs I put in for my Tapu, then he'll be able to just wreck shop and kind of like finish out the rest of my team at +1. So that's why I ended up bringing Tapu. I thought that was ultimately my safer play. Otherwise, I could have went to Volcanion, and the Sludge Bomb would have been really scary for him. Would have brought him real low to the point that Tapu may have been able to finish him off. But yeah, so he's at 77. I'm going to switch out to Gigalith because I just want to sack something at this point, really. And so he takes a little sand damage. He does reveal he has the Fire Blast here. And yeah, that's essentially that. So if Hyper Voice kills me, and it does, then Didn't need too much investment, I'm sure, to be able to finish me off there. But yeah, I go to Volcanion, and this is kind of interesting because my options were to either press Sludge Bomb right there, damage the Gyarados a little bit, or maybe the Altaria if he stayed in, or I could go into Tapu, and then kind of like predict from there to see what would happen, because then I could theoretically threaten him with a Wood Hammer, with my Rock Slide something, and that essentially would have been that. But his Altaria would have been at around 65 when it came back in, so potentially a 2 KO, not entirely sure. But yeah, so that's essentially that. I go for the Sludge Bomb. I do get the Poison, which is definitely nice. After Sand and Poison, he's pretty darn low, and my Volcanion goes down to 20%. So here's the thing. I think 100% of the day he's going to go for his Z move here. So I think, alright, well, I'm going to have to sack Volcanion, because otherwise I'm just going to lose to... Because Gyarados is going to live after this turn. And Tapu is the only thing that even has a chance to take on this Altaria. So I do end up sacking Volcanion here. And definitely for the best. Otherwise, definitely would have lost Tapu. He does have Moxie. I think it's worth mentioning that he has Moxie here. And it's like, what the heck? I was definitely expecting Intimidate to have a better presence here. But yeah, at the end of the day, all I have left is Tapu. It is Scarf, so it will kill Gyarados no matter what I want to use here. But my options include my Horn Leech and Wood Hammer. But Grassy Terrain's going to go away after this, so it's not going to have much presence against Altaria. Then I have Smart Strike, which is the hardest hitting move that can hit Altaria, or I can go for Rock Slide. So those are my options really, between Smart Strike and Rock Slide, and I'm going to hope that my computer can record this last bit, or can add to this last bit here for probably around a 30-40 minute video. And I just want you to see the raw footage of basically what happened here. That's the main reason I really wanted you to be able to see the raw footage, and I'll just let it take away from here. Smart Strike does twice as much, but again, he can just roost stall me. He can just roost stall me. If we get this. Please! No! Dang it! Here's the thing. I kind of want to look back at this. But I mean, after this. Oh, please, please, please! Yes! 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 No! Oh my god! And that's how it ends. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Wow. Well, that made my heart race for a second. Dang it. Dang it. The one misplay I say I had was not finishing off Tangrowth when I could have, but again I thought he was trying to regen his core. And Altaria proved to come up to really reign once again, just like last time. We had so much momentum going for us, so it sucks that it like slowly dissipated. Obviously, my only chance at the end was, you know, getting that kind of hacks. But Rock Slide should do 15 to 18 if he has this much investment. But he doesn't, obviously. He might be max HP. And Smart Strike would have done 36 to 43. And let's skip a bunch of turns here to where he was in terms of health. He was at 77. So I would have been able to 2 a KO perhaps. I would have, yeah. So I would have been able to 2 a KO him probably. But obviously not Oko. Yeah, because Rock Slide would have done about twice as much. But yeah, he was just going to, yeah. At the end, he knew that Hyper Voice was going to kill me from that range, I guess. Yeah, 34 is pretty darn low. And so he was like, let's just not even mess with it at this point. But I knew at that point that was my only option. And so I went for it, and it almost worked out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sucks that it's the end of this season, but again, we got to the tournament. We got to bracket, which I think was a really important step. It was just a very interesting way this finished out. Literally based on a 90% chance at the end of the day. Obviously, there was these other hacks for flinching versus crit and that kind of thing. But we don't need to go into that, obviously. So, it's the way it happened. It really was a really good game. It was a really good game. And halfway through it, I had to reflect on, would I be able to take on his core after I made a couple of arguably not so great plays, just with like facing that regen slow bro and letting my team start to wither down a little bit. But that's that. I'm not going to cut any of this. This is an hour of just pure battle, and not to mention this ends the season for me, so hope you guys enjoy every minute. I really did ultimately, and it just came down to that. So thank you all for watching. Guess I'll see you next season, huh? Like, comment, sub. Until later. Peace.